first 15 degrees has all sorts of other muscles involved. The rest is going to be axillary nerve. Musculocutaneous nerve, flexion of the arm at the elbow. Right? So the arm is flexing at the elbow. Once again, we'll look at a bunch of these in just a second. Oh, now let's go through the leg and then look at everything. So I want to go back for 1 second. Amazingly, these nerves have an incredible number of branches. Your hands are amazing. You can do so much with your hands. You can play musical instruments. You can write. You can draw. You can pick things up. You can wave. You can do all sorts of things. And that's on top of this. That goes beyond all of this. And you are simultaneously doing many of these behaviors. You know, if once again, you think about just closing your hand on something. What's going on? What are the nerves involved with doing this? Or playing a piano. When you're playing a piano, you are simultaneously flexing and extending fingers, or in other musical instruments. So there's a lot going on. Now, with your leg, unless some of you are incredibly talented, you can't do half the things you can do with your hands. Okay? My guess is most of you couldn't pick up a pencil and write using your foot and leg. I mean, it's just not something we do. Yet when you watch little kids, it's amazing, because I swear they could do that if they wanted to. So once again, we're going to look at 6 nerves here and talk about some movements. Leg flexion at the hip. So you're going to flex at the hip. Leg extension at the knee. Extension at the knee is a little easier to understand. So with joints, we can flex joints and we can extend joints. Typically, if this joint were to flex, we have 2 units here. This angle would become less. So we're flexing. So it goes from here to here. We go from 180 degrees to 90 degrees. Are we okay with that? We could, in theory, keep flexing to about 45 degrees maybe. What is going to stop the action of flexing? There's going to be something physical to prevent it. You're going to bump into something. You're going to run out of room, whatever it is. But extending is different. Extending. What's preventing my arm from extending more? Well, structure in my elbow here. All right? What prevents my knee here from extending more? Well, the kneecap and structures in my bone. However, with extension, you can force it to happen. So you can have joints that become hyperextended. You cannot have joints that have become hyperflexed. So hyperextension is something you will all see in your careers. Just wanted to make sure we're on top of that. Abduction and adduction of the thigh. So the thighs here, abduct, adduct. That's it. Sciatic nerve. Okay, the sciatic nerve is involved with a lot. But when it comes to moving your leg, mostly it's leg flexion at the knee. What would that be? That's flexion. And think about it. Could I force my knee to go my lower leg to go forward more. I could. Would it be comfortable? No. Would I damage it? Yes. But coming back, muscle gets in the way. And that's a good way to remember flexion versus extension. Almost always, flexion, since you tend to be pulling something towards other muscle, you're going to get to a point where you can't, you're going to physically stop it. Tibial nerve, plantar flexion. We're going to look at plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. Those are two weird movements. Once again, you should know them. Foot inversion versus eversion. Another weird set of movements. It's got to do with whether your foot does this, or I can't even show it to you really. Yeah, whether it's moving in or out. Inversion and eversion. Toe flexion. You flex your toes when you kind of curl them under. And then toe extension. When you're standing, your toes are extended. So let's look at what these are. Your textbook has those tables, the two tables. I think there are more muscles in there, but I don't just stay with me. No, I think it's 6 on one, 5 on the other. Table 9.1, I think. Anyway, I just kind of summarized it. So we have a whole series of illustrations here showing you some actions. So in here, his arm is flexed, his arm is extended. Shoulder flexion and extension are a little more difficult to understand. Okay? So, flexed. In this position, with my arms at my side, I'm extended. I go back, I'm hyperextended. That's all normal. Okay? Now, the reality is when you think about it, with flexion, I am still flexing no matter how I go here. With extension now, I've reached the hyperextended state. If I go further back, what's going to happen? I'm going to damage my joint. Extension of the wrist. Under normal circumstances, okay, my wrist is extended, flexed, hyperextended. If I were to keep going, I have muscle here. Okay? Some people are extremely flexible in the wrist and many other joints. So, abduction and adduction. So, this weird person, okay, it looks like something out of a temple in southern Asia. The legs in this position, the arms in that position, is really anatomical position. When the arms come towards the body, they're being adducted. Abduct to take away. Okay? Here's your pronation and supination. Thing to remember, anatomical position, you are supinated. That's really nice to remember. Okay? When you rotate, what's rotating here is the wrist. The two bones, the radius and the ulna here, are parallel. As this happens, the radius crosses over the ulna. So if they're crossed, when they're pronated, they're parallel when they are supinated. Lots of movement here. Ulnar flexion, radial flexion, abduction of the fingers, palmar abduction. That's doing this. You are abducted from the palm. So it's really a hard maneuver to do because it's moving in this plane. You know, we always want to kind of bring it out this way. Once you bring it out that way, you're just abducting it. And then opposition. Opposition typically we think about as being an action of the thumb. This is always confusing. Dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. This has to do with the structure of the ankle and the foot. So the reality is dorsiflexion is flexing the ankle. So you're pulling up the toes towards your leg. Plantar flexion is flexing the foot. Okay, the ankle is also kind of being flexed, but don't think, because you can bend your foot without bending your ankle. It's hard to do. Dancers, ballerinas, when they're on point, are in plantar flexion. Inversion and eversion. Inversion's a little easier than eversion. What you're going to find is a lot of these motions are easier in one direction versus the other. And it's got to do with the amount of muscle you have available. Hip flexion. So your hip, you're flexing as you bring it up. Okay? And then knee flexion is going in the other direction. So I just think if you have pictures, it makes a little more sense. You know, I just think it helps you to visualize what all of those maneuvers are. Okay? I don't know what else to tell you about that. Other than that's as far as we're going on the exam. Are we okay with that? Want to review? No? Okay, we go. Oh, I'm sorry, did you say yes?
I have a question.
Yes.
Just to make sure. So extension is basically your leg straight, correct?
Yeah. When you're
Okay.
standing, your leg is extended.
Okay.
There are some weird anatomical concepts like that. You know, you think when you're just standing and relaxed and everything, that everything is relaxed, whatever that is. But since all of these things are essentially from a planar view, you remember up there I drew that? All right, so with the leg here, think about the upper body as one side there, and the lower body from the leg down as the other side. Oh, that's extended. You know, it's one of those things you have several classes once you're in OT school that will reinforce this for you. This is kind of, you know, your initial reinforcement. Make sense? Cool. You really, every time you go to do something, if you draw out two pieces, okay, and label them with whatever it is, this could be fingers, hand, all of a sudden extension and flexion makes sense with angles. Okay? Well, we have a lot of material. God. There's the easiest part. Peripheral nervous system, central nervous system. Yay! I am going to attempt to make more than half of the exam multiple choice. The rest might be a labeling exercise, or I ask you what I would like you to label on something. So I might give you a drawing and say, you should be able to, you know, label these 4 or 5 items. Okay? Things like that. If I do it right, I might have arrows and things even on some of them. I might give you, as I said, we might have some little short answer things or a fill in the blank. More likely, I'll give you a drawing, and I'll have arrows pointing at 4 things and say, what is this? What is this? What is this? Don't worry, the goal here is not to throw you in a blender. The goal here is to actually see what you know reasonably. This, you know, is your basic lateral view of the internal part of the brain. I would, all of these names look really complicated. They're really easy.